Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Darian Jones. I'm the Caregiver Education and Digital Specialist at Care Partners. We're a nonprofit organization who's dedicated to bringing caregivers support, education, and resources and quality care to their loved ones with memory issues and other challenges of aging. During this time of the COVID crisis, we are offering online education and support. Be sure to check out our website, www.carepartnerstexas.org. And this link specifically, we're doing a video conference Common Ground support group twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you want some more information about how to get involved, be sure to check out this link. Today, we have a very special guest. We're inviting her back. She spoke last week about just some different caregiving things. And this week, we are going to have her talk about family dynamics and conflict resolution. So today we have Lea Stanley with us. Hi, Lea.
Hi, Darren. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you again for being here. Can you tell us a little about yourself and what you're going to be talking about today?
Well, I am a former caregiver, and I am an author and a speaker having an opportunity to address caregivers who are currently in the situation. I wrote a book detailing my experience with my grandparents. It's called Goodnight Sweet, A Caregiver's Long Goodbye. And I took care of my grandparents for almost 3 years. They were in a nursing home. They both had dementia at the same time. So I was 29 years old when that all happened. So it's been some time ago, but I still remember the rough road that it was to be a caregiver. It's unlike anything else. You know, when you have children, you're a caregiver, but you know the children are going to grow up. You know there's going to be good, positive things that are coming. But with my grandparents, I just was watching them go down, down, down. And that is a hard thing for caregivers. And that can be particularly hard if you have some family challenges. And that's what we were going to talk about today is the family dynamic. Sometimes family's really easy to work with, sometimes not so much.
Yeah, I mean, even especially right now, people are kind of stuck at home. Tensions might be high. There's a lot more stress going around, and all of those things can add to these conflicts and issues in a family.
Exactly. And then, of course, with everybody sort of on shelter in place, lockdown, quarantine, we've got all these names that we're calling it, but it comes down to the same thing. If you're shut in the house with someone and you're providing care, you've got the problem of the family down the way. They can't necessarily get over there. So they don't know what's going on at home with mother or father, you know, and they're looking at you, the caregiver. Well, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing to take care of this? What about that? And it's easy when you're not the main caregiver to play armchair quarterback. And I can tell you, as the caregiver who was on the receiving end of that, it makes a very hard job even harder when you've got people who are wanting to criticize and gripe and complain about everything you're doing, or they're questioning everything that you're doing. It's really, really exasperating.
Yeah. And so can you tell us some of the things that you're going to cover today and some of the advice you're going to give us?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that I get on my box about this every chance I get. I beg people, please do your pre-planning while everything is okay, before something, you know, comes about, before the bottom falls out and now suddenly you're having to chase the 8 ball to figure out what you're going to do. I urge people at any age, make sure you have your pre-planning done, your estate planning. Go to an attorney if that's something that is in a budgetary need for you to do. Some people don't have a budget for that. There are colleges with law schools. A lot of times the law schools actually do workshops with their third-year students. So you can go in and get an estate planning package done for little of nothing. And so just because you hear the word estate planning, don't pass out and think, oh no, that means it's going to cost me thousands of dollars. You know, again, if you have that kind of disposable income, go for it. But if not, go somewhere like that. Call and check around, see what you can look around in the Houston area, Harris County, see what kind of programs are available. Because it's good if you can have somebody with some legal knowledge. I always tell people, I laugh and say, look, I am not a lawyer, so I am not giving you legal advice, but I urge you, I stress to you the importance, get your legal documents done. Why is that such a big deal? Well, let me tell you, if you don't have a pre-planned idea of who's going to take care of mom or dad or grandparent, aunt, uncle, whoever, and then suddenly something happens, you're going to be up a creek. And what are you going to do? So if there's a pre-planning, if mother or father has already done their pre-planning, the good thing about that is they named who they want to take care of them. They've already named, oh yes, I want this person to be have my durable power of attorney. I want this person over here to have my medical power of attorney. I want this person over here to take care of this, that, the other. If they've already named the person they want to take care of things, that takes a lot of the starch out of it, so to speak. It takes a lot of the pain out of it. And that way, when that person does have to step in and fulfill their role that they've been tapped for, it's just a little bit easier. That way, other family members, they may not like it. They may think, well, I could have done a better job. And so there would be some resentment to deal with there. But it would certainly take care of a lot of the bickering about who's going to take care of what. So I always want to stress, get your pre-planning done early. Do it ahead of time. That way, it's already settled who's going to take care of what. Now, sometimes in families, there are conflicts that are just seemingly impossible to resolve because you've got maybe child A has the power of attorney, child B didn't get anything. So, clearly mother doesn't love me enough. Mother doesn't love me, or they chose you over me. And these kind of dynamics, I don't mean to sound like I'm making fun by any means at all, not at all. But in a case like that, do everything you can to try to sit down and have an open discussion about the elephant in the room. Be honest about how you feel, and let's try to see if we can't come to some common ground. In the event that that is not possible, and unfortunately I've seen situations where that was not possible, we do have some options. You can actually go online and Google family conflict mediation. And there are organizations that actually offer mediation in a family conflict situation. Somebody that can come in, a third party, they have no skin in the game. So what they're looking for is how to resolve this situation and have peace. Because here's the rub. If there's no peace between siblings or between family members, it is the person with the affliction who's going to suffer. Someone has to be in charge, and the other people need to be able to come in around that caregiver and lend support, because no caregiver is an island. You can't be a caregiver unto yourself. You're always going to have things that come up that you're going to need some assistance with. So it's best if you can try to do this in a peaceful way. In the event it can't be, there is family mediation. So that is something I was amazed when I started looking to see. It's not something that there's just one or two organizations around the country. There are several organizations in different states, and they can get in there and help you resolve the conflict, and that's going to result in better care for your loved one.
That's some great advice. And we actually did, we've had a couple of elder law attorneys recently come do some live segments with us, and they talked about the power of attorneys and the importance of these documents. So if you need some more information on that, there are some videos on the Care Partners blog. And so when it comes to these conflict, and one thing I love that you said is that let's talk about the elephant in the room, being direct and straightforward. That can really help situations, right?
Absolutely. People trying to operate in the dark, that is bad news. People trying to circumnavigate or go around, or, I'm just going to figure this out on my own and I'm not going to tell so-and-so that I'm doing this. That creates so much problem, so much chaos. In my own situation, and I detail this out in my book, my grandparents were my biological father's parents. Well, my biological father had left my mother and remarried, so I had two younger half brothers. And when I notified them about our grandparents and about the situation that they had to go into a nursing home, dementia and these things, the first thing that the younger half brother and his mother did was they rented a moving truck. They drove the 3 hours over to my grandparents' property and they emptied that house. And I always tell that story, and people, that when I'm speaking to crowds of people, the gasps in the room, it's just, you should see, it's like a universal reaction. People are always like, oh. So I just think to myself that I'm glad to be able to share that now. I was horrified when it happened, but I'm glad to be able to share it now because it lets people know, listen, I'm not just trying to sit here and blow sunshine around. I'm really telling you from personal experience. If you can kind of sit down and have a discussion. So I wound up meeting this half brother and his mother at the nursing home, and we had quite the discussion. They certainly wanted to put me in a defensive posture. They very much wanted to intimidate me. I really was not worried because I knew that I had the legal documentation. I knew that everything I had done for my grandparents, it was very obviously being done with their best interest in mind. I had their doctors. Everything I was doing was above board. And I knew that. And I knew, like I said, I knew I was making decisions that were based on the fact that I had the documentation. I had been given the durable power of attorney. So I knew I was within my rights to do the things I had done. They were being well cared for, but it left me unnerved when I had these people sitting across from me, really challenging me, wanting to know what my position was. Was I going to take an executor's fee when they passed away? I was just horrified that people thought like that. I couldn't believe that family would act like that. I was like, these are your grandparents too. And the first thing you want to do is go to their house and clean them out. It just seemed unbelievable that the things were more important than the people. So when I talk to folks about the conflict and the fact, I want you to understand this was real for me. I went through this and it was a mess. It was a mess of stuff. And I had the other half brother's wife actually went into the nursing home and started telling the nurses there, well, I'm their granddaughter. I want to see their charts. And in the days when HIPAA was still really, really new. And unfortunately, the nursing home didn't seem to quite comprehend the enormity of HIPAA and the protections that it afforded. So they did. They just whipped out the charts and showed this woman that they didn't even know just on the word that she was their granddaughter. And when I was called about it, they were like, were you in here today? I was like, I was not. What's going on? And they told me. So I had to deal with that I had somebody who would lie, who would walk into a nursing home and lie about it to see the charts and to look at all that. And I was like, well, first of all, you can look. There's nothing secret here. There's nothing hidden. But it was just the way it was done. If you had just asked me, I would have gladly disclosed anything you needed, but they didn't do that. That wasn't the way they wanted to do business. So it was a mess. But when I talked to my grandparents' attorney who had given me the documentation, he assured me my position was solid. He said, you've done nothing wrong. He said, if they were to challenge you in court, they don't have a leg to stand on. Now, it came down that they didn't. They never did issue a challenge. They never tried any legal maneuvers. And I'm very, very thankful for that. But I know there have been others cases where siblings would get into it to such a degree that they would actually take each other to court to have papers changed and legal power of attorneys changed. My emphasis on this is don't let it come to that position. Do everything you can to achieve peace. And in the event that you can't get peace, seek family mediation. Get a third party who can come in with no bias, who can sit down and hopefully help clear the air. That's what they do.
Yeah, it's really interesting when assets get involved and people and assets.
Yep.
And that your advice about finding a third party mediation is just really helpful. And what is some of your advice when it does come to conflict? What are some of the things that you personally did to reduce these conflicts?
Well, one thing I had to do, I had to draw on my faith. I had to go to God and I had to tell the Lord, do you see what these people are doing? This is insanity. What is happening? I was young. I was vastly inexperienced. And it was so scary. I'm just going to be honest. It was so scary. And I've had people since then, in fact, people who read the book, and they've come back and looked at me and said, boy, if that had been me, I would have said this, that, the other. And I was just like, you don't understand. I was too terrified to do anything because I thought, what if I opened a can of worms? What's going to happen? Is it Pandora's box that I can't get out of? What I had to do, I drew heavily on my faith and I went to the Lord, and the Lord began to show me that the best thing to do with an enemy of that magnitude was to pray for them. It made no sense and I didn't feel like doing it, but I did. I chose. I said, the best thing to do here is to extend forgiveness. It was challenging. The good news for me was I didn't live near these folks. And so once they made their sort of initial foray into the nursing home, once they went to the house and emptied it, They had everything they wanted, basically. At that point, it was a matter for them of waiting until our grandparents had passed away and collecting the inheritance. And, one half brother, my older half brother, he was very civil about it. I appreciated his attitude and the whole thing. We had a fledgling friendship established. The younger half brother never contacted me. He contacted his brother and demanded to know where his portion of the inheritance was. And his brother had to tell him these things take time. Probate takes time to find a buyer for property, etc. It all worked out, but I was so terrified. But I did pray my way through it, and God gave me peace. And that I was so, so thankful. I was so appreciative, but it was hard. And there were times that, like I said, I didn't feel like playing. I thought, I don't even want to do this. I don't like forgiving people. But you know what? It turned out forgiveness really wasn't for them. The forgiveness was for me. The forgiveness blessed me. It freed me from the fear of, oh my gosh, what are they doing? What are they up to? What's going to happen? That was priceless to be free from that.
And that's the next thing I was going to come to. Another really important part of conflict resolution and just being okay with yourself. I think a really important topic is forgiveness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh my goodness. I can't even tell you how big of a deal this is. A lot of times I hear people say, oh, I just can't forgive them. Again, forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is letting yourself take your hands off of their throat. It releases you from the stress of not wanting to forgive and the ugly that comes from that. There are so many studies that have been done that show the connection between your physical health and your mental health. If you are swamped under with anxiety and unforgiveness and you're so bitter, I just can't forgive them, I won't forgive them, I'm not letting go, I can't forget what they did. Man, I understand. People will hurt you. People can be awful sometimes. And you just look at them and think, how? As a speaker, when I have talked to groups, I've had people come up to me afterwards and I have heard horror stories that made mine look like a walk in the park. And I'm looking at them going, how can I look at this person and go, well, listen, you really need to forgive them. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I don't mean this to sound pat or trite. I mean to say forgiveness is a process and it will take time. But when you can begin to verbalize, I need to forgive this person because I don't want their ugliness to affect me. I don't want the rest of my life tied up because they chose to behave badly. As I said, in a case like this with caregiving, when you know that you've done all you can, when you know that you've taken every possible step to keep the peace, they may still not like it. The other family members may still look at you and go, well, yeah. Well, you know what? Bless them and forgive them and move on. Do your job as the caregiver because you're not really doing the job for the other person. You're doing the job of caregiving for the one who's tapped you for the job, for your mom, for your dad, for your spouse. Sometimes it's kids that get upset with dad when he's not taking care of mom right, et cetera, things like that. Siblings get upset when mom's not being taken care of right. It's a mess. Family dynamics, it comes in all shapes and sizes. One child is upset because they feel like mom and dad favored this child over me, or, it just comes in all shapes and sizes. But forgiveness, it's a universal concept. It means that you're choosing to let go of what's happened. You're not going to hold on to it. You're not going to let it tie you down. You're not going to let it hold you in one place because you're going to be able to move forward as you let go and forgive. And it will make you feel better. That is the truth.
And that's exactly as you said. It's being able to let go. It's a release. It's a weight off your shoulders.
Exactly.
And it looks like we do have a question.
Oh, good.
What would you say, or when would you say that a power of attorney is needed? You kind of talked about, you think it's just so important to have it before anything goes wrong.
Yes.
But what would you say?
Yes. Okay. With my grandparents used their attorney to draw up their documents. I want to think it was 5 years prior to their actual needing it. The most updated documents we had were 5 years prior to the actual need. I can tell you, we live in Houston, and my husband and I have an attorney in Kingwood. She is excellent. And she drew up a set of papers for us. And she told us, she said, here's what you want to do. She said, go ahead and name each other as your functioning power of attorney. And she said, that way the document's active the minute you sign it. And so I thought, well, what does that mean? She explained, let's say that you're out of town and your husband needs to conduct some kind of business that would require both of your signatures. If he's already got active power of attorney for you, he can sign, and he can sign for you, and it's good to go. So I thought, well, now that is a really good idea, because that doesn't sound like you're waiting for something unfortunate to happen. It sounds like you're using a document that's functional right now. So my advice on legal stuff, how soon can you do it? That is really what I encourage people. The sooner, the better. I am totally thinking immediately is the answer. I want everyone to understand how important it is if you don't have these documents and something happens. In the case of my grandparents, they got in the car one Saturday morning, they drove away from home. They were found 4 days later on the side of the road with the passenger side was banged up, they had a flat tire, and the temperatures were below freezing. And when the sheriff got them back home, the neighbor called me and he said, we've got a problem. You need to get up here immediately and find out, what to do with them, because this is bad. With us, literally the bottom fell out like overnight. I mean, just all of a sudden they needed me. And if those papers hadn't been in place, we would have been up a creek. And I actually had a doctor tell me that when we took him to the emergency room, have him checked out. The doctor told me, he said, you are so, so lucky that she did this, that your grandmother had these papers in order, and your grandfather too, because if they had not, we would see the problem and there wouldn't be a thing we could do to help you. And it was like, that was a sobering reality. I was so, so thankful that we had our papers in order, but cannot imagine if we had not. So like I said, I definitely do your due diligence, look online, search out, get some ideas of what you need. That doesn't cost you anything. But again, I always emphasize, do talk to an attorney. Talk to someone who has the legal background. And Darian, as you pointed out, you guys have talked to some attorneys, some elder law attorneys. I am sure that those attorneys would be glad to do an initial consultation. A lot of times those initial consultations, they don't charge. So that's something you can definitely take advantage of. And then even if you need to plan, if you need a budget or whatever, that's okay. You can take a little bit of time and try to do that and work something out that way. But I do urge, the sooner the better. Don't let it wait.
And that's some great advice. I don't think we can stress how important these documents are. They really can make the difference.
Absolutely.
And I guess we'll leave it with this. What would be some of the best things that you could, or what's the biggest takeaway you'd want to let people know when it comes to family conflict and family dynamics?
This is really important. You can not control what other people do. I mean, I'm sorry, but there are sometimes people are just going to act ridiculous. And you can do to change it, stop it, talk them out of it. You know what I'm talking about. But you can absolutely control your response. And so that is the key. When you are a caregiver, really in any walk of life, but particularly as we're addressing our caregivers, when you are a caregiver, you are in a situation where someone is criticizing you or someone's demanding answers as to why you did this or why you didn't do that or whatever it is they want to know. Try to respond with kindness, try to respond with patience, but also don't hesitate to look at them and say, you know what, I really do love you and I really do respect you and I appreciate the fact that you have this opinion, but we're really going to do it this way because I really think this is what's best. So don't hesitate to just keep your response under control. If you blow around the room, that doesn't do anything but get everybody mad and then everybody's upset. And then things get said. And once it's said, we can't go back. But if you can keep control of your response, that can change a lot. That can turn a tide.
And I think that's really important for people to remember. You can't always control what's going on around you, but you can always control yourself.
Exactly.
We really, really appreciate you taking the time to share this really great information, Leah.
Great. I appreciate the opportunity, and I certainly hope it will help the listeners today.
Yeah. Well, we're going to say goodbye today, but thank you so much again.
Thank you.
And thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with some more Hot Topic live segments. We're going to be talking about stress management. Baker Ripley is going to come on and share some of their tips with us. So be sure to check that out. And again, make sure you check out the Care Partners website and specifically this link if you need some more information about how to get involved in the Common Ground Support Group teleconferences. With that, have a great rest of your day and we'll see you soon.